Pam Bondi walked into the CNN town hall, thinking she was about to destroy Denzel Washington in front of millions. The former Florida Attorney General had come prepared with talking points about Hollywood elites staying out of politics. But what happened in the next 30 minutes would leave her speechless and create one of the most viral political moments of the year. Denzel Washington sat calmly in his chair, wearing a simple navy suit, his hands folded as Bondi approached the podium. With confidence. She had no idea that the 69-year-old actor had spent months preparing for this exact moment. What she thought would be easy target practice was about to become her worst nightmare. The audience of 200 people sat in stunned silence as these two powerhouses prepared to clash. Bondi believed she was facing just another Hollywood celebrity. Denzel knew he was about to school a politician who had clearly underestimated him. This wasn't going to be a typical political debate. This was about to become a masterclass in preparation versus assumption. Before we dive into how this incredible showdown unfolded, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of these explosive political moments. Trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. The CNN studio was packed with a carefully selected audience representing different political viewpoints. Security was tighter than usual because the network knew this combination of personalities could create fireworks. Camera operators had been briefed to capture every facial expression and reaction, sensing that this wasn't going to be a typical political discussion. Behind the scenes, tensions were already running high. Bondi's team had spent the afternoon reviewing talking points designed to expose what they called Hollywood hypocrisy. They had prepared statistics about celebrity political donations, quotes from other actors who had made embarrassing political statements, and a strategy focused on making Denzel look like just another out-of-touch entertainer. Meanwhile, Denzel's preparation was far more extensive than anyone realized. His assistant had quietly arranged meetings with constitutional law professors, former prosecutors, and civil rights attorneys. What appeared to be standard celebrity prep was actually a months-long intensive course in American law and politics. His wife Pauletta had watched him study late into the night, filling legal pads with notes and practicing arguments in their home office. The green room interactions before the show were telling. Bondi had chatted confidently with CNN staff, making jokes about schooling some Hollywood liberals tonight. Denzel sat quietly, reviewing his notes one final time, occasionally nodding to himself as he mentally rehearsed key points. The contrast between their energy levels should have been a warning sign that someone had seriously misjudged the situation. The lights dimmed slightly as CNN host Anderson Cooper introduced both guests. Tonight, we have former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi and Academy Award winner Denzel Washington discussing the role of celebrities in modern politics. Neither of them smiled as they looked across the stage at each other. The tension was already building, and America was about to witness something unforgettable. Pam Bondi entered the studio with supreme confidence. As Florida's former attorney general for 8 years, she had prosecuted thousands of cases and never backed down from a fight. At 58, she had built her reputation on being tough, direct, and uncompromising. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her black power suit crisp and professional. She carried herself like someone who owned every room she entered. Bondi's rise through Florida politics had been meteoric. Starting as an assistant state attorney in Tampa, she had quickly gained attention for her aggressive prosecution style and media-savvy approach to high-profile cases. Her successful runs for attorney general had been built on promises to crack down on corruption and stand up to powerful interests. She had taken on pharmaceutical companies, fought against healthcare fraud, and made her name by never backing down from seemingly impossible legal battles. The Republican establishment loved Bondi because she could articulate complex legal arguments in ways that ordinary voters understood, while maintaining the credibility that came from actual courtroom experience. Her television appearances were legendary among GOP strategists. She had a talent for reducing opponents to stammering confusion while maintaining an air of professional authority. Bondi had been chosen specifically for this debate because of her track record of dismantling unprepared opponents. Republican strategists knew she could handle any Hollywood liberal who dared to speak about politics. Her preparation team had spent weeks researching Denzel's past political statements, finding what they thought were contradictions and weak points. Denzel Washington thinks his movie roles make him qualified to lecture Americans about justice and politics, Bondi had told her team earlier that day. I'm going to show the country what happens when celebrities step outside their lane. She believed this would be a simple victory, another Hollywood elite exposed as out of touch with real America. Her confidence wasn't unfounded. She had successfully debated senators, governors, and federal judges. Her legal mind was sharp, her media training extensive, and her political instincts had been honed through decades of Florida politics. What she didn't realize was that she was about to face an opponent who had prepared with the same intensity she brought to major prosecutions. Denzel Washington sat quietly in the green room, reviewing notes that surprised even his own team, while most people knew him as the star of Training Day, Malcolm X, and The Equalizer. Few realized the depth of his preparation for this moment. The son of a Pentecostal minister, Denzel had always been politically aware, but for this debate, he had gone much deeper. For the past 6 months, Denzel had been working with constitutional law professors from Harvard and Yale. He had studied Supreme Court cases, memorized legal precedents, and consulted with civil rights attorneys. What started as research for a potential legal drama had become an intensive education in American law and politics. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Friends and family members noticed that Denzel's usual pre-interview routine had changed dramatically. Instead of reviewing talking points about his latest film, he was studying constitutional amendments, criminal procedure, and civil rights legislation. His home office had been converted into what looked like a law school study room, complete with legal textbooks, case law summaries, and constitutional analysis. His approach to preparation was methodical and thorough, reflecting the same intensity he brought to method acting. When Denzel prepared for a role, he became that character completely. For this debate, he had essentially become a practicing attorney, studying not just the law, but the specific cases and precedents that related to contemporary political discussions. People see me as just an actor, Denzel had told his wife Pauletta the night before. But tomorrow, I'm going to show them that preparation beats assumptions every single time. He had filled 3 notebooks with research, cross-referenced hundreds of legal cases, and practiced his arguments with actual attorneys. The irony wasn't lost on him that he was preparing to debate someone who actually was a trained attorney, but whose preparation seemed to consist mainly of assumptions about his lack of qualifications. Denzel understood that the element of surprise would be crucial, but he also knew that surprise without substance would be meaningless. He had spent months ensuring he had both. This wasn't just another celebrity political appearance. The country was watching to see if Hollywood stars really understood the issues they spoke about, or if they were just reading scripts written by their publicists. For Republicans, this was a chance to expose what they saw as celebrity hypocrisy. For Democrats, it was an opportunity to show that public figures could be both entertainers and informed citizens. Bondi represented the establishment, political class, trained lawyers who believed they had exclusive rights to discuss policy. Denzel represented something new, celebrities who refused to stay silent, but were willing to do the work to earn their voice in political discussions. The winner of this debate wouldn't just score political points, they would help define whether celebrities belonged in serious political conversations, or if they should stick to entertainment. Both participants understood that their reputations were on the line, but only one of them truly understood what they were walking into: Anderson. Cooper had moderated hundreds of these segments, but even he seemed unusually tense as he prepared to begin. The CNN producers had expected a typical celebrity versus politician exchange. Instead, they were about to broadcast something much more dramatic and consequential. Anderson Cooper barely finished his introduction before Pam Bondi launched her first strike. "Mr. Washington, with all due respect to your acting career, Don't you think it's problematic when Hollywood celebrities use their platforms to influence American politics without any real understanding of law or governance? The question was designed to put Denzel on the defensive immediately. Bondi's strategy was simple: establish him as an uninformed celebrity and herself as the serious legal expert. She leaned forward slightly, her prosecutor instincts kicking. And as she prepared to dismantle whatever scripted response his publicist had prepared, Denzel smiled slightly, a reaction that seemed to surprise Bondi. Ms. Bondi, that's an interesting question. But before I answer, can you tell me your thoughts on the Supreme Court's decision in Terry v. Ohio and how it relates to current discussions about police reform? The question hit Bondi like a punch she didn't see coming. Terry v. Ohio was a 1968 Supreme Court case about police stops and searches, exactly the kind of detailed legal knowledge that celebrities weren't supposed to have. Bondi paused for just a moment too long, and everyone in the room noticed. Well, Terry v. Ohio established reasonable suspicion standards, Bondi replied, but her voice had lost some of its initial confidence. She hadn't expected to be questioned about specific legal cases. Denzel nodded politely. That's correct, but incomplete. The case specifically established that police officers can stop and frisk individuals based on reasonable suspicion of criminal activity, but the standard of reasonable has been interpreted differently across decades of subsequent rulings. Are you familiar with how Terry has been applied in recent cases like Rodriguez v. United States or Utah v. Strieff? The room fell silent. Anderson Cooper's eyebrows raised slightly. The audience began to realize they weren't watching a typical celebrity political appearance. Denzel was citing specific Supreme Court cases with the precision of a law professor. Bondi's confident posture began to shift. These weren't the softball questions she had prepared for. Mr. Washington, I'm impressed by your research, but knowing case names doesn't qualify someone to make policy recommendations. You're absolutely right, Denzel agreed, his tone remaining respectful but firm. Which is why I've spent the last 6 months working with constitutional law experts at Harvard and Yale, reviewing over 200 Supreme Court cases related to civil rights, criminal justice, and equal protection. I've also consulted with practicing attorneys who handle these cases daily. The audience began to murmur. This wasn't the Hollywood elite versus serious politician narrative that everyone expected. Bondi realized she needed to regain control of the conversation quickly. Mr. Washington, that's all very impressive, but at the end of the day, you're still an actor playing a role. Real legal experience comes from actually practicing law, prosecuting cases, and making decisions that affect real people's lives. It was a good recovery attempt, but Denzel was ready. Ms. Bondi, you're absolutely right about the importance of real-world legal experience. Speaking of which, can you walk us through your decision-making process during the Trump University investigation in Florida? Another unexpected attack. Bondi's face tensed visibly. The Trump University case was a sensitive topic. She had decided not to investigate after receiving a donation to her political action committee. It was exactly the kind of real-world legal decision she had just claimed gave her credibility. That investigation was handled appropriately according to Florida law, Bondi replied, but her voice was more defensive now. I'm sure it was, Denzel said calmly. But since we're discussing the importance of legal experience, I'm curious about the timeline. Your office received multiple complaints about Trump University in 2013. A $25,000 donation was made to your PAC. Then the investigation was dropped. Can you help us understand how those events relate to each other? Anderson Cooper leaned forward, sensing the dynamic shift. The audience was completely engaged now, phones starting to appear as people realized they were witnessing something special. Bondi tried to redirect. Mr. Washington, I think you're confusing Hollywood conspiracy theories with actual legal procedures. This is exactly why celebrities shouldn't involve themselves in complex political matters they don't understand. But Denzel wasn't backing down. Ms. Bondi, I agree that understanding complex matters is crucial. That's why I can tell you that your office received 23 separate complaints about Trump University between 2013 and 2014. The donation to your PAC was made on September 13, 2013. Your office announced it wouldn't pursue the investigation on September 17, 2013. These aren't Hollywood conspiracy theories. These are public records. The specificity of Denzel's response stunned everyone in the room. He wasn't just throwing out general talking points. He had clearly researched the exact timeline and had the documentation to back up his claims. Bondi's preparation team had focused on Denzel's political statements and movie roles. They had completely overlooked the possibility that he might have done serious opposition research on her record. The hunter was becoming the hunted. "Mr. Washington," Bondi said, her voice showing, "the first signs of real frustration. You can cite all the dates you want, but you weren't there making these decisions. You don't understand the complexities of running an attorney general's office." Denzel paused thoughtfully. "You're right, I wasn't there, but I have spoken with attorneys who were involved in similar cases, and I've reviewed the legal standards for such investigations. Would you like to discuss how your office's decision compared to similar cases handled by other state attorneys general during the same period?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Bondi realized she was facing an opponent who had not only done his homework, but had somehow managed to research her specific record in detail. This was supposed to be her expertise, her home field, advantage. Instead, she was being questioned by someone who seemed to know her own cases better than she did. Anderson Cooper sensed the moment had arrived for the decisive exchange. "Ms. Bondi, you've built your career on legal expertise. Mr. Washington has clearly done extensive research. Where do we go from here?" Bondi decided to make one final attempt to reassert her authority. She stood up slightly, using her full prosecutorial presence. "Mr. Washington, I respect the research you've done, but there's a fundamental difference between reading about law and practicing it. I've prosecuted murderers, handled complex fraud cases, and made life-or-death legal decisions. That's not something you can learn from books." It was a strong argument, delivered with the confidence of someone who had used similar lines to great effect in courtrooms and political debates. The audience seemed to respond to her authoritative tone. But Denzel's response would change everything. Denzel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small leather folder. "Ms. Bondi, you're absolutely right about the importance of practical legal experience, which is why I should probably mention that I actually do have a law degree." The room went completely silent. Anderson Cooper's mouth actually fell open slightly. Bondi's confident expression froze on her face. "I graduated from Fordham University School of Law in 1977, Denzel continued calmly. "I passed the New York bar exam the same year. I never practiced because I chose to pursue acting, but my legal education is very real. I've maintained my continuing legal education requirements, and I actually still hold an active law license in New York State." The revelation hit the room like a bomb. Bondi sank back into her chair, the color draining from her face. Everything she had assumed about her opponent was wrong. She wasn't debating an uninformed celebrity. She was facing a trained attorney who had chosen a different career path. Denzel opened the leather folder. "I brought my bar admission certificate because I assumed this topic might come up." He handed the document to Anderson Cooper, who examined it carefully before showing it to the camera. "This appears to be authentic," Cooper said, clearly amazed. "Mr. Washington, why didn't you mention this at the beginning of our discussion?" "Because Ms. Bondi's point about celebrities staying in their lane is actually valid in many cases," Denzel replied. "But I wanted to demonstrate that assumptions can be dangerous. She assumed I was just an actor with opinions. I am an actor, but I'm also an attorney who has spent months preparing for this discussion with the same rigor I bring to preparing for film roles." Bondi tried to recover, but the foundation of her entire argument had crumbled. "Mr. Washington, even with a law degree you haven't practiced, you don't have the experience of actually trying cases." Denzel nodded thoughtfully. "That's true, Ms. Bondi. But I have to ask, during your 8 years as Florida Attorney General, how many cases did you personally try in court versus supervising other attorneys who handled the actual litigation?" It was a devastating question. Most state attorneys general serve as administrators and policymakers rather than trial attorneys. Bondi had overseen thousands of cases but had personally tried very few. That's not the point, Bondi stammered. The attorney general position requires leadership and oversight. I completely agree, Denzel said. Which brings us back to the original question about celebrities in politics. If the qualification is legal education plus the ability to research complex issues and make informed arguments, then perhaps the real question isn't whether celebrities should speak about politics, but whether politicians should make assumptions about people they haven't bothered to research. The studio audience began to react audibly. Some were laughing at the complete reversal of the expected dynamic. Others were applauding Denzel's preparation and Bondi's comeuppance. Social media was already exploding with clips and reactions. Anderson Cooper struggled to maintain his professional composure. Ms. Bondi, how do you respond to Mr. Washington's revelation? Bondi took a deep breath, trying to salvage something from the wreckage of her strategy. I'm surprised by Mr. Washington's background. It's not information that was made available to me. With respect, Ms. Bondi, Denzel interjected gently, my law degree is a matter of public record. It's mentioned in several biographies and interviews from early in my career. Perhaps the issue isn't that the information wasn't available, but that your research team made the same assumptions you're criticizing other people for making. Bondi made one last desperate attempt to regain control. Mr. Washington, regardless of your education, you still use your celebrity platform to influence politics. Don't you think that gives you an unfair advantage over ordinary citizens? Denzel's response was measured and thoughtful. Ms. Bondi, that's an excellent question, and it's one I've struggled with personally. Yes, I have a platform that most people don't have. But you also have a platform as a former attorney general that most people don't have. The question is whether we use our platforms responsibly. He paused, looking directly at her. You used your platform tonight to try to silence someone based on assumptions rather than facts. I used mine to demonstrate the importance of preparation and research. Which approach better serves the public discourse? The question hung in the air as Bondi realized she had no good answer. Her entire strategy had backfired spectacularly. She had walked into the studio expecting to embarrass a celebrity, and instead had been systematically dismantled by someone far better prepared than she had imagined possible. Anderson Cooper looked at his notes, clearly struggling to find a way to move the conversation forward after such a decisive exchange. The audience was buzzing with excitement, and the CNN producers were probably already calculating the viral potential of what they had just witnessed. Before the CNN town hall had even ended, social media exploded with reactions to Denzel Washington's shocking revelation. Within minutes of him producing his law degree, Denzel lawyer was trending on Twitter, followed quickly by Gus Bondi backfire and never assume. The most viral clip showed the exact moment Denzel pulled out his bar admission certificate, with Bondi's shocked expression frozen in a screenshot that would become an instant meme.
When you come for Denzel but discover he's actually a lawyer, appeared across thousands of social media posts within the first hour. Conservative commentators struggled to respond to the unexpected turn of events. Fox News, which had been preparing
to run segments about another Hollywood elite being exposed, found themselves scrambling to reframe the story. Tucker Carlson's planned segment, Celebrity Stupidity Exposed, was quietly canceled. Liberal social media users celebrated not just Denzel's victory, but the methodical way he had dismantled Bondi's assumptions. This is how you prepare for a debate, tweeted legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. Denzel Washington just gave a masterclass in turning the tables. CNN's Anderson Cooper later admitted in interviews that the debate was one of the most surprising moments of his career. In 30 years of journalism, I've rarely seen someone so completely reverse the expected dynamic of an interview, he told colleagues. The clip of Denzel revealing his law degree became the most watched CNN segment of the year, with over 15 million views in the first 48 hours. Late-night talk show hosts spent days creating comedy segments around the moment, with Stephen Colbert joking, "Apparently, Denzel Washington has been playing a lawyer so long, he actually became one." Legal blogs and websites dove deep into Denzel's actual credentials, confirming not only his Fordham law degree, but also discovering that he had maintained his continuing education requirements and had even served on the board of several legal aid organizations throughout his career. Bondi's team went into immediate crisis management mode. Her initial statement, released 2 hours after the debate, read, "I was not provided with complete background information about Mr. Washington's educational credentials. Regardless of his legal training, my points about celebrity influence in politics remain valid." But the damage was already done. Political commentators noted that Bondi's failure to research her opponent's background raised serious questions about her preparation and judgment. If you can't properly research someone you're debating on national television, how can voters trust your investigative abilities? Asked CNN legal analyst Laura Coates. Republican strategists privately expressed frustration that Bondi had walked into such an obvious trap. Any decent opposition research would have uncovered his law degree, one GOP operative told Politico anonymously. This is basic preparation that somehow got missed. Bondi's attempts to appear on other networks to explain her position were largely unsuccessful. During a Fox News appearance 3 days later, host Brett Baier pressed her on why her team hadn't discovered Denzel's legal background. "I relied on my staff's research," Bondi replied, but the answer only reinforced perceptions that she had been unprepared. Denzel's post-debate interviews revealed the calculated nature of his approach. "I knew that the assumption would be that I was just another uninformed celebrity," he told Good Morning America. "I decided to let that assumption play out and then use it as a teaching moment." He explained that his decision to obtain and maintain his law license wasn't for career purposes, but for personal understanding. "I wanted to truly comprehend the legal system I was commenting on. Too many people, including politicians, speak about laws they don't actually understand." The revelation transformed how other celebrities approached political engagement. Several high-profile actors announced they were enrolling in political science or law courses to better prepare for public policy discussions. "Denzel just raised the bar for all of us," tweeted actor Mark Ruffalo. The debate had implications far beyond the two participants. It sparked a national conversation about assumptions, preparation, and the qualifications needed for political discourse. Political science professors began using the exchange as a case study in debate preparation and the dangers of underestimating opponents. The incident also highlighted the changing nature of celebrity political engagement. Whereas previous generations of politically active celebrities were often dismissed as uninformed, Denzel's example showed that public figures could combine platform with genuine expertise. Democratic strategists noted that Denzel's approach provided a model for effective political communication. Be respectful, be prepared, and be ready to back up every claim with facts. "This is how you win debates," said James Carville. "You outprepare your opponent and let the facts speak for themselves." For Pam Bondi, the debate became a defining moment that overshadowed much of her previous legal career. Despite her 8 years as Florida Attorney General and numerous successful prosecutions, she became known as the politician who tried to embarrass Denzel Washington and got schooled instead. Her political prospects were significantly damaged. Planned appearances at Republican fundraisers were quietly cancelled, and her name was removed from consideration for several federal positions. The incident became a cautionary tale about the importance of thorough preparation and the dangers of making assumptions about opponents. For Denzel Washington, the debate marked his emergence as a serious political voice. He was invited to speak at law schools, appeared on serious news programs, and was courted by both political parties for endorsements. However, he largely declined these opportunities, preferring to use his proven point about preparation as a one-time lesson. The debate clips continued to circulate for months, often appearing in compilations of greatest debate moments, and Times celebrities surprised everyone. The phrase, pulling a Denzel entered political vocabulary as a term for revealing unexpected qualifications that completely changed the dynamics of a discussion. Law schools across the country reported increased interest from non-traditional students, with many citing Denzel's example as inspiration. Fordham Law School created a scholarship in his honor for students pursuing law degrees while maintaining careers in other fields. The incident also influenced political debate preparation. Campaign managers began conducting more thorough opposition research, specifically looking for hidden qualifications or unexpected expertise that opponents might reveal during debates. Perhaps the most significant impact of the Bondi, Washington debate was its demonstration that assumptions could be politically dangerous. Bondi's downfall wasn't caused by taking controversial positions or making factual errors. It was caused by failing to research her opponent and making assumptions based on stereotypes. The debate became required viewing in political communication courses, with professors using it to illustrate the importance of preparation, research, and intellectual humility. Never assume you know everything about your opponent became a standard piece of advice for political candidates. For ordinary citizens, the debate provided a powerful reminder that public figures often have hidden depths and unexpected qualifications. It encouraged people to look beyond surface impressions and to do their own research before making judgments about public figures. The story of Pam Bondi trying to embarrass Denzel Washington and discovering his legal brilliance became more than just a viral moment. It became a lasting lesson about the dangers of assumptions and the power of preparation. In an era of political polarization and quick judgments, it stood as a reminder that the most effective arguments are built on facts, research, and respect for opponents, rather than stereotypes and assumptions. Make sure you liked this incredible breakdown of how preparation beat assumptions on live television. Subscribe now so you don't miss our next deep dive into the most shocking political moments that changed everything. Which political showdown do you want us to cover next? Let us know in the comments below, and remember, in politics, as in life, never underestimate the power of doing your homework.